All right, so we talked about the brand definition. We talked about the situation analysis. So, brand definition being really the core, defining who we are, and the situation analysis is defining how we stand against the competition from a thought leadership standpoint. Now let's talk about the target audience. So, why do we care about a target audience? Because we want to know who we're talking to. If you've ever tried to, I remember when I was teaching at Oregon, we would have students write a letter to their parents asking for another year of college and making a case. And we said, okay, we have to make this case, but you can't just be like, hey, it'll be great for me. Here's all the things I would enjoy. I would like, more time living in the, whatever, doing college things. It was a lot more about what a parent would want to hear. I mean, you're asking for, let's say they're going to college for 4 years. You're asking them for another year and a whole nother year of money before they even launch from college, right? So you have to make a pretty good case. Now, the whole point of the assignment was you need to understand what motivates your mom or your dad, right? Or both, right? You may have to address both of their concerns in there. And so you're going to have to make a pretty good case, but it means you have to know your target audience. So the target audience is, it's kind of simple, but so what you have is you have to say, like, a lot of times in a workshop, we'll say, okay, who's your, like, a website workshop? Who are your users, right? So you have, you might have employees using the site, or whatever. You might have, but we're not probably marketing to employees. We're probably marketing to prospects, or we might be marketing to current clients and just trying to build, maybe build relationship. So a lot of times in a content strategy, you are trying to build a relationship. Now, when you're talking to prospects, a lot of times, well, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that down here because we will get into this. A lot of times, you get people on your email list, and now you're nurturing them, and you're saying, hey, here's how to think. You're educating them so they think like you, and so when it's time to buy, they may be still prospects, right? They're probably not clients yet, and then so your target audience is basically like, who is the right person I need to talk to, but not only that, who, and then also, like, tell me some things about them, right? So you might have, so demographics, this is where it gets interesting. Demographics are the language of media. So if you're going to go out and buy a magazine ad, you want to look at the demographics and the media kit of that magazine. In fact, it's kind of a hack, right? In marketing, when you're like, hey, I think my product would go really well for GQ readers, right? GQ, Gentleman's Quarterly, or whatever it is. And so you go to their site and then you say, give me your media kit. And then they'll tell you, hey, you should advertise with us because we reach this many, people, men age 35 to 50 or something like that, right? And then they'll give you other demographic information. And you're like, okay, let me take that demographic information and put it right here, demographics. And so, because it's the language of media, it's how you buy media. Even LinkedIn, you have things that you can look at, like age, position of the company or whatever, right? And so we're B2B. We're doing a lot of B2B. I am. And so a lot of this is we're looking at B2B companies, B2B workers. And so we're talking about position, right? We're talking about responsibility and what level, right? What are they, a VP? Do they have their own budget? Or, are they a manager who has to ask for everything, let's say, has to ask for money every time they, want to buy something. So these things are important. But then you also talk about, there's this thing in advertising, it's called the Meet Maria. and I'm running out of space here. But it's basically like, hey, here's Maria. What's her day like? Does she have a cat? Right? Does she have a cat? I don't know how to draw a cat. Does she have a dog? It probably would look the same for me, if I drew one. Does she have kids? Are they in college? What age is she? Well, the age would be in the demographics, right? She has kids in college. What are her frustrations at work? So now you're getting into like how she thinks, right? Frustrations at work. What are the things that we need to solve for her? What kinds of things add friction to her day? And so you start getting into these things. And now you have a really well organized, like, let's say this is demographics up here. Let's say this is her picture. Let's say this is like some really general information about her. And then this is where it starts getting into her problems. What are we solving for Maria? And then we have a couple other sections too, and it really depends on it. I've never written two of these the same. I've written a lot of them. Never written two the same, because the client sees their target audience in different ways. And so, a lot of times we'll get information organized in different ways. We'll get certain kinds of information that stand out, that are particularly helpful. The client will raise questions that are kind of interesting. And so, and that may go into this, and probably no two are the same. But so this is your target audience. Target audience. This is how you know who you're talking to. And so there are a couple of people this helps, right? So like we said, it helps the media person, the media buyer, for sure, because now they have this demographic. Oh, actually, it was right here, right? This demographic information. But then it also helps the writer and designer, because the writer needs to know, how do I talk to this person? Guys, something about writing is that if you don't know who you're talking to, you sound corporate, and you sound boring, and you sound like you're not relating to them. You sound like ChatGPT wrote it. But if you know who you're talking to, especially if you're like, the writer is like, oh yeah, I know my Uncle George is like that. I don't know if uncles are named George these days, but my Uncle George is like that. I know exactly who I'm talking to. And the funny thing is that at this level, he can think that, and he's probably going to be writing a pretty personal, cool ad. I don't know if it's a LinkedIn or whatever, but it's going to be cool, right? Because he's going to be like talking to someone like he knows them. And that's really the whole point with this, for the writer to understand who he's talking to, and then get that extra little edge where he's like, yeah, I know who I'm talking to. I'm talking to my Uncle George, and he's going to love this product. And when he feels that way, when he's like, yeah, I know who I'm talking to, and I know they'll love the product, the writing comes to life. And so mostly media, because the media person has to buy ads, and then the writer, because the writer has to send the message. You're going to notice a little bit of a division whenever we talk about things like this, because things fall into, if an ad isn't working, we're like, is that a media problem, or is that a message problem? It's medium or message. And you might have heard, oh, the medium is the message. And you might have heard a lot of those. I don't know if you've heard that or not. It's pretty academic, I think. But hey, are we choosing the wrong media source? Is our media targeting the wrong people, or is our message off? Which one's off, media or message? And then you can start there and say, hey, we think it's media. Okay, good. Now we have to start asking questions about media. So the target audience is key to understanding how to talk to people. And so again, the first thing we want to do is our brand definition, and then we do our this is about us. This is about this starts to get to how we're interacting with other people. This set of things right here. And then we'll talk about the mood boards probably next time.